Hello, hello. Welcome to another Facebook Live, and this one is a popular topic, bedtime battles. So often we think that bedtime battles, usually people, when they say, I can't get my baby to go to sleep, it's all about babies. But as you probably know, especially if you have been interested in watching this Facebook Live, it is not something that just stops at infancy. We have bedtime battles and struggles with our kids regardless of their age. And I definitely know of families where they're struggling with this, and maybe it's the elementary years or it's the tween years, and all along the way. I completely can relate. My children right now are 11, 8, and 5 years old. And yes, we have had our share of bedtime battles. So this week we're kind of focusing in on it and looking for ways to help each of you in order to combat this and to come up with some ideas. So first and foremost, the Mama Says Namaste podcast. This week's episode, which just went live today, it is all about bedtime battles, and I really dig into it with my husband, Nathan, and even share insights that our girls have given as far as what they believe has helped them. So that is the listening to the podcast is a great way to get some more insights and ideas. And I also am doing this Facebook Live to launch a 5-day Facebook challenge that is going through Bedtime Battles series. And Sheila will share the link for the podcast that I talked about, the podcast episode, and also the opportunity for you to get access to doing this challenge where you can see these videos where it's 5 videos where I also lay out some more ideas for dealing with bedtime in your home. So if you are joining us and you have a question or a struggle about how bedtime is working in your home, please post it, because I want this to be a little bit different than me just giving the information, because you can get that in the podcast. This is our opportunity to engage a little bit more. So on that note, I did engage. We asked the question in the Facebook group, what were some ideas that people had that helped them has helped them with getting their kids to bed. So Mandy shared, the same type of routine. Sometimes it's at different times, but usually staying pretty consistent. Ashley said that she uses essential oils and snuggles. However, then she ends up falling to sleep too. I so understand. Sometimes we get so comfortable and so drawn out with the process of getting our kids to bed that we end up crashing as well. And I'm going to get to that part. Then let's see, Justine said knowing your child, their needs, their day, their activity, and going by a rhythm, and then helping by adding white noise and a lullaby playlist and 2 stories and cuddles. And so what they've done is they've really created this routine that kind of cues and prepares the brain for bedtime, which is another great feature to have. Deborah shared melatonin, which I know that sometimes people, you got to be careful when you're adding in any kind of vitamin or drug. You don't want that to become the only way that somebody can go to sleep. But in her situation, it really helped because she had an extreme case. Her daughter had only slept through the night 3 times all the way through the night by her 5th birthday. And so she ended up, her pediatrician suggested melatonin, and it worked like a miracle, just as a reset, not as a constant, but using it for 2 weeks to adjust her body into that healthy sleep pattern. So there have been some different ones like that. Ashraf was, again, talked about normal routine. Having a normal bedtime routine is definitely important and helpful. But before you get to that point, there are some critical components that you really need to look at. And that first one is really just identifying why. Why do you want an early bedtime? Or why do you want your kids to go to bed? Obviously, we're going to have multiple reasons for that. I mean, we want them to go to bed because you need your sleep for health, right? But there's more to it than that. They need to go to bed, and you need to have an opportunity to not be a parent, to have a break from it a little bit. I've shared, I think before, my sister-in-law used to have a business that she called Mommy's Sabbatical, and it was take a break from the ones you love so you can love them better. And man, having that time set aside to have the opportunity to not have your parent hat on and to have a moment to recharge as a couple, as an individual in the evening, versus just it being a crazy whirlwind and then crashing at the end of the day. You know, maybe your why and your reason for you having your wanting your kids to get to bed has more to do with your need to recharge or to connect with your partner. And that's your why. Or maybe your why is because you know that the next day you have a lot of stuff to do. It's going to start early in the morning and your kid needs their sleep for that reason. But first, identifying that why is really, really helpful. Then after that, after you've really kind of laid out your why, then it goes back to preparing your kids and letting them know what's happening and what you're doing and the why behind it. And I read a great article, and it kind of shifted how I was going to do this today, because I read a great article this morning that was talking about which is better, rewards or punishments. And then in the title it says neither. And it says rewards and punishments are conditional, but our love and positive regard for our kids should be unconditional. So here's how we change the conversation and behavior. And Sheila will share this in the on the Facebook or in the comments as well, so that you can see this. But it was really great, and actually was perfect timing, because the very first sentence says, I feel a sense of dread as bedtime rolls around. Here we go again. And, you know, it's one of these where punishments, and I'm quoting from this article, punishments tend to escalate conflict and shut down learning. So what happens is they elicit a fight or flight response. That means that sophisticated thinking in the frontal cortex goes dark, and that basic defense mechanism kicks in. So punishments can make us either rebel, feel shamed or angry, repress our feelings, or figure out how to not get caught. And so, you know, if you have a little kid and they're going into that fight or flight mechanism, you can end up with a huge epic battle. And I so had this, especially with my first daughter. My first daughter, Clara, she decided, I was pregnant with our second, and I said I only wanted one in diapers at a time. So my 2.5-year-old, I decided, all right, we're going to do potty training. Well, she took it upon herself to not only do potty training that week, but also to give up her pacifier, which was a huge deal, and also, for the sake of safety, since she was catapulting out of her crib in the evenings, switch to a big girl bed. I had 2 weeks of parental bliss. I had 2 weeks of there being so much new going on that my kid was fabulous. It was the honeymoon stage of it, and I thought, oh, I've got this parenting thing down pat. And then 2 weeks ended. The honeymoon was over, and I had an insane monster on my hands at bedtime. It was an epic battle of wills, and we both are stubborn. And it was really difficult. And we had so many issues with her getting up out of bed, and me trying every tactic and strategy and punishment and reward and everything else. It's a miracle I got through that time. And the strategies I ended up using, I mean, it's not something that I would reflect on or that I would recommend now to anyone else. And I think my biggest reason for having as much failure as I did in dealing with navigating this 2.5-year-old that would not stay in her bedroom was my lack of consistency with it, because I'd try something for a night or 2 nights and it didn't work, so I'd try something else. And so she never got that routine that she really was craving to begin with. So I completely understand the rewards and punishments, and I have been very much in the rewards and punishments arena at different times in my parenting. And I think out of desperation, sometimes we do fall in that arena. It's easier to place that on there. But then going back to that article, the next thing was, rewards are the positive choice then, right? Not so fast. Rewards are more like punishment's sneaky twin. So families find them alluring because, again, your rewards can control a child momentarily, but then it can wear off or even backfire. So, it says in here, how much do I get? A client told us her daughter said one day when she was asked to pick up her room. So they start doing things fully for the reward because it decreases that natural motivation and enjoyment, and they're just doing something for a reward instead. And so a psychologist calls this the over-justification effect. Now, of course, I could just go through and read this whole article because it was so fascinating to me and applies so much in the framework of dealing with bedtime, because that tends to be so much of a struggle for different people or for different families. But the point of bringing in the rewards and the punishments is that, again, you're looking at adding in something. So they're doing it, for fear of a threat or for the purpose of a reward. And we want to go back to the why. This is not just it's not a Band-Aid approach. It's not just a surface thing that we're just going to fix the issue. Go to bed, and if you go to bed for 5 nights in a row, then you're going to get wink night. No, it's not that. Now, wink night, and I didn't clarify, wink night for our family, if we do that to one of the kids, they know that means they get to stay up late and have a special one-on-one night with Nathan and I, where we watch a movie and we have a treat, and it's super fun for them, or play a game or something else. I'm not going to hold the threat of, no, you haven't gone to bed, you're not going to get a wink night, ever. Although I really have felt like that sometimes. Instead, though, I can explain it in a different way. This isn't a reward or a punishment. It's, hey, I have been battling with getting you to go to bed. I understand you're curious and you want to be a part of things, but I'm drained. I'm really tired, and when I have to remind you again and again that now is your time to rest and you need that rest, what happens is you end up cranky. I end up cranky, and I don't have the energy to stay up late and do a wink night for you. So I'm still using, a wink night is still a reward, but I'm not dangling it as a carrot over their heads saying, this is the only reason you go to sleep, is because if you go to sleep perfectly for 5 nights, now you get a movie night. No, it's, okay, my bucket is empty. I'm fried and I need to go to sleep. I need this sleep. I need this rest to recharge. And so do you. And we explain that, and we talk about the why behind it and why it's important to get sleep, why it's important to give mommy and daddy space to recharge and to connect. And if we don't have that opportunity to connect and to talk about things and talk over our day at night, what happens is we're going to have to find space for that at some point. So is it the next day you guys have to all sit silently while we have a conversation, or we don't get to do something because we haven't worked out the logistics the night before, etc. So we're going deeper with not just explaining what our why is, but being clear on it, but then also communicating it with our kids and letting them understand the bigger picture. Clearly, this is something that's easier to do with my 11-year-old than it is going to be to do with a 2-year-old. But for a 2-year-old, there's still that ability to start learning cause and effect, and pointing out when they're yawning and what are those feelings that they're feeling and how important it is for sleep. When they're waking up and talking and highlighting, doesn't it feel good to get that good sleep? Now you're ready to take on the day because your body has built up all of this energy and all of this growth at night. Oh my gosh, I think I even see you growing. You can do a lot of things to help them to experience the benefits and the positivity around sleep and how it's important. Because bottom line, it doesn't matter what, how much you want to get through this. This is something that is going to be a consistent for the rest of their lives. There's always bedtime. So we might as well help them to understand the significance and the importance of it. It's not like we're going to just eliminate this, or that they're muscling through and one day they can stop and they don't need to do this again. This is something that is a natural part of life that we all have to do. We all have to sleep. So let's get to the point that we recognize the why for sleep and we can appreciate that. Now, Some of the other things is, kind of setting a goal, doing a family reset. When I talk about that, again, this comes with empowering our kids. So often we meet resistance when we just demand and they don't understand the why behind it. It's when I talk about functional education, I talk about how important it is for there to be an internal motivation. And if you're not internally motivated, it's a lot harder to get any kind of understanding and to get some follow through and have support in what it is that you're wanting to do. So help to internally motivate your kids, help them to identify it, and help them talk with them about what are some ideas that you think would help you. When do you feel calm? It's probably not when they're running around playing tag. Yet sometimes you have families where the parents are working all day long. They come home and, straight from work, then you're headed into sports activities and you've got homework, and then you've got sports activities and running around, and then you're going and doing, this dinner club or this event, and there's no downtime. And then you come home, you're completely ready for sleep, but their bodies haven't fully defragged and debriefed a bit. And I'm blanking on her name. I can't remember where this comment was, but I did see a comment for one of the bedtime things that talked about what she recognized with her child is she was really trying to get him to go to sleep, and it would take such a long time. And if she was in there, he just stayed awake. Well, recognizing those personality styles is so significant because what she found out is, and my guess is this is probably an S personality child. Transitions are something that you need to ease into a little bit, and sometimes there's some resistance to change. And relationships are super important. So you have an S and they see their mom's hanging right there, and they're going to say, let's hang out, let's relate, let's talk. And all of that. But in understanding that personality style, the best way for them to recharge or to deal with the transition and get their mind around it is to allow for rest and allow for space and back off a bit. And this mom found that if she actually allowed for time for him to go to his room by himself and play with his toys and have some time just to kind of be in his own little world, he ended up putting himself to bed. And that's a whole different dynamic. Here she is thinking that it's this long, laborious approach that she has to spend all this time and energy on. But really, when she took a step back and got to see what her son really needed, what his personality style fed into, that need for rest and a break was super important. So some other tips for, and so doing that and asking your kids, what can they, how can they help what can they do? You have to be realistic. I know that as an adult, if I have a night where I'm tossing and turning, maybe I had too much coffee or chocolate that day, and not that that's a bad thing, however, it can really affect your sleep. And so maybe I'm tossing and turning and whatever, for whatever reason I cannot get to sleep. When we as adults do that, we don't sit there and come up with, berate ourselves and come up with a huge punishment. We look for those sleep solutions for us. We recognize, okay, if I turn on the TV, I may end up spending the whole day or the whole night glued to the television, because we recognize that media and the screens and everything else can suck you in and can sabotage your sleep. So, that's not a good option. I know for myself that sitting there and just trying to act like I'm going to sleep and tossing and turning forever is not going to work. It is better for me to get up out of bed so I'm not disturbing anyone else and go and sit in the living room. And typically what I'll do is I'll read a book. And even if a book is absolutely great, there comes a point where my eyes are nodding and I can't handle it anymore, and I'll go to sleep. So I'm not saying you have to force your kids to sleep, because that's just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You cannot make your kid go to sleep like that unless you're really good at hypnosis, and maybe you can. But you want to still help them understand the why as to why they need to be in their beds, what they can do to wrap their minds around sleep. And some of the tactics that we've done in our household is, yes, it's not that you have to go to sleep right away. Clara is 11 years old. She wants to stay up later. And honestly, she could stay up as late as what we do and be fine. We don't allow that all the time because we've been very clear about how important, especially in our household where we're with our children 24/7, how important it is for us to have that time for us to connect. Without children, we do things children don't need to be a part of. So she understands that. And she tosses and turns. So what do? You may read a book. We have done just practice being still and close your eyes. You do not have to go to sleep. And I'll do this one, reverse psychology for my youngest especially. You don't have to go to sleep. I just want you to try lying still for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, lie still with your eyes closed. That's all you need to do. So don't go to sleep. Just lie still with your eyes closed for 10 minutes. And see if that helps to calm your body. And that takes about, maybe 2 minutes, and she's out like a light. So it may be that it's being still. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe I have Googled, or I've done on YouTube, I'll pull up guided meditation for sleep. And there's a ton of them out there. And it doesn't have to even be a kid-focused one. We have had not only guided meditation for sleep, but we have had some rock star quick sleep transitions by putting in The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. He has a very soothing and monotone voice, and so it would knock them out like that. And hey, the subliminal, the subconscious listening to The Power of Now is still a pretty awesome thing. So maybe it's a guided meditation or a talking, like an audio book or something like that can help. Another thing is like somebody had mentioned earlier, pulling out a fan for white noise and adding those things in. And then a big thing is, and I'm going to leave on this, is debriefing. So often we try a strategy, we're frustrated, and we react about it, but we don't actually come back to it outside of the heat of the moment. And this can be for conflict in general in your home. Is it something where you only react when you're butting heads and when you're battling and you're frustrated, or can you come back and assess it later? And so we will do that, and we'll do, if we need a family reset, okay, kids are going crazy. You guys, it's just, bedtime has become really chaotic again. We've gotten lax with this, and everybody's being really crazy. I know you guys have gone through a growth spurt, but we need to reset. So we sit down as a family, we talk about it. We say, this has not been working. Do you guys like how snappy we've been? And we talk about it. And after we talk about it, then after we talk about it, then we'll come back to them and say, sorry, I just saw that we've got questions, and I'll answer the questions as well. But after we talk about it, we set a game plan. So we set the expectation. Okay, this is how we want tonight to go. Does this work? Or we tell the kids, okay, how are you going to do this? And I'm not just telling them this is your list. That's one of the tips that Juliet suggests. She loves having a list of what she needs to do, and she sees it and she can check it off. And that's great. Once we've established, okay, this is what we want, this is our why, and this is how we're going to do it, then it's, all right, on how I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to empower you to do it yourself. And it may be you have to sit with them and you have to show them the process over and over again until they get it. But once they get it, move out of the way and let them do it. You will not always be putting your child to bed. They're going to have to learn how to put themselves to bed eventually. So let's do it in this safe environment, right? So anyway, we'll do that. And then the next morning, we talk about it again. We bring it up. So how did you think last night went? I really appreciated how well you guys went to bed. That was awesome. I love that you guys got ready so quickly. We had time to read a book. Or how do you think last night went? Well, Juliet was screaming and it was crazy. And yeah, okay, Jules, what can we do differently tomorrow night or tonight? So we talk about it and we go ahead and we debrief on what worked and what didn't work. And we talk about what we'll do next. And when we do that, now, at this point, it's not that our kids never have an issue going to bed. It's not that we don't deal with a battle in our home. Our kids are kids, and they're going to have those times of ups and downs, and so are we as parents. but it's that opportunity to have a reset. And a family reset is less and less intense when your kids know it and expect it. So now when I say, hey, we need a family reset, the whole family understands what's going on. We know that, all right, this is not going to be a time where we're going to be watching movies. This is not going to be a time where we're going to be hanging out with friends and staying out late and everything else. We're going to make our focus on helping the whole family work together as a team to establish the bedtimes we need. And yes, Trevor posted on here that one thing I've tried is explaining when we get to bed earlier, we have more time for stories and less time when we go to bed later. And that is so true. And I use that a lot, where it's not a threat or anything else, but the kids get in bed. Can I read a story? Well, guys, it took us 30 minutes to get wrangled together, and now it's already super late. We can't do it tonight. Tomorrow, what can we do differently so that we can do that? And we start talking about that. Erin says, any tips for kids who are scared every night and won't go to sleep in their own room? So a 5-year-old tends to be a light sleeper, ends up sneaking in our bed sometime during the middle of the night, just about every night, and gets up with us early in the mornings. Yeah, man, when you've got the fear thing, then this is where we're going to kind of go into what's the reason behind it? What is the deeper issue? Is it really that they're scared, or is it that they want that extra attention? And if that's the case, and if it's really more about attention than it is fear, then quickly, okay, I can go to this. We don't even have to address the fear issue, because if we address the attention issue, maybe we can get to the bottom of it. And that is really what I talk a lot about in the podcast. Nathan learned what FOMO meant because he didn't know fear of missing out. And oftentimes that can be the culprit for why our kids are not going to bed. And so establishing things like a talkie time or one-on-one time, or having some focused and intentional time with your kids before, can help to eliminate that need to constantly get that attention, and can help that a little bit. And then another thing is, if it's a legitimate fear, brainstorming with your child, what are some ideas for combating that fear? Maybe you have monster spray and you have a little water gun or spray mister or something, where they have their own spray, so they're in charge of it. Or maybe you do a sweep of the room with them, or you go deep into the imagination of what the fear is, if it has to do with monsters or dragons or the boogeyman or whatever, and what can you do, and which way can you play it? I mean, a lot of it can depend on the personality style of the kid and the age. So, at almost 5, there are lots of kids' books on dealing with fears at night, and and then you can get creative with it and do the imagination aspect, or you can bring the realism into it as well. And you have a kid who's very analytical. Maybe you want to do something as let's research how many monsters have gotten children in their homes. And let's, monsters under the bed. How many monsters have hidden under the bed? Can we Google? And obviously you need to prep a little bit on this, so you know what it is you're pulling up before you pull it up. But, maybe there's something that you can find online that shows that there's proof that monsters don't live under the bed, or that, or something along the lines of that. Maybe it's something like watching Monsters, Inc., where the monsters are not the scary ones anymore, and all of a sudden you have a big shift on what's actually scary in their room. So hopefully that helps a little bit with dealing with the issues of what's scary and what's not. So Erin, please feel free to reach out if you've got more questions on it. I know that I have your son's, I know we have talked about your kids' personality styles specifically, and so I want to make sure I can address it to your child's personality style. So thank you for that. And yeah, Brian, the guided meditation for the win. Man, guided meditations are great. I happen to have a guided meditation on the front page. It's not necessarily for kids, but that's also a good reminder for me. Maybe I need to come out with a guided meditation for kids to share with you guys as well. So if there is an interest in that, I will definitely address that as well. So guys, check out the podcast. Listen to Nathan's and my comments and ideas on this, and also sign up to Sheila, and I'm blanking on how exactly they're getting the videos. I think if you land on the podcast notes page, that you're going to get a pop-up that's going to help you to get these videos. So Sheila will be my helper with, she's my awesome mom assistant, so she's going to help with this. Okay, she says to join the Take Back the Night Challenge. Find it in the podcast this week. So go to that link, listen to the podcast, do the Take Back the Night Challenge, and I will tell you one of the biggest things that I am pushing this week is sharing your story. Understand you are not alone in this, and that when you share your story, you may get a great idea of something else that works. I'm going to do an ask. I want to hear from you guys. What are your favorite books for bedtime? And this is to maybe combat being scared. What are your favorite books for bedtime when you have a kid that's super scared or that's super antsy? What are some things that you really like that helps, beyond a good night, Moon? What things do you do? Or is there a book that you just do by routine? And that's part of it, is that it's the same book every night, and they love the lull of your voice and the beauty of the story. So share with me this week in the Mama Says Namaste Facebook group. And thank you very much. I hope all of you will have nice and restful bedtimes this week. Bye, guys.